It's really recklessly irresponsible to always pretend we have an emergency. We have to do it. We have to do it now. The government might shut down. Well, you know what? A whole lot of businesses have shut down. A whole lot of families have shut down because of the government's reckless policies. So it would be painful. I'm not saying it wouldn't. But maybe that's exactly what has to happen to get people's attention.
Well, sometimes Washington feels like a fantasy land where you can spend whatever you want, and if there's not enough income to pay for it, you just increase the credit limit. But this time, the Republicans insist they will only raise the lid if equally sized cuts are also made. Governor Mike Huckabee has seen this show before and offers his wisdom on it. How's it going to go? What do you think?
Well, we'll find out if the Republicans actually brought their guts to work with them, because sometimes they leave those at home along with their brains, leave it all on the nightstand. They show up for work with neither guts nor brains. And that's when America gets in trouble, and that's why we have $31 trillion in debt right now. I mean, it's just really overwhelming if you stop to think about how much money that represents. And it's the kind of budget that somebody's got to get control of. Well, the Republicans were not given the majority of the House, albeit a slim one, but they were not given that majority just to go along and make sure they can go to the swell cocktail parties over in Georgetown. So let's hope they keep their promise and they exact something out of this budget and they don't raise the debt ceiling apart from getting some serious cuts in the spending.
Governor, you know, the most expensive and precious metal in the world, it's not platinum, it's rhodium. They must have an American Express rhodium card in D.C. I'd love to see that thing because they just keep putting things on it and on it and on it.
Yeah, it's like the coveted black card that American Express has that you only get it by invitation. Needless to say, I've not been given one, but I have a feeling that Congress has, because they are certainly capable of spending all kinds of money, and they do it because it's not theirs. And this is the problem. When there is no control, Rob, one of the reasons that I'm on a national steering committee for the Balanced Budget Amendment, and it's a work group trying to get this established by invoking Article 5 of the Constitution and forcing Congress, is because Congress will never do this, really balance the budget, unless they have to. 49 of the 50 states have to balance their budget by law, and the 50th, Vermont, does it anyway because it's just good, prudent financial policy. The federal government doesn't have to do it, and as a result, they don't. And quite frankly, they don't care because they figure the real day of reckoning for the spending extravaganza that they've been part of will all come due sometime after they're long dead, and they won't care.
You know, Speaker McCarthy, it took him 15 separate votes because of the holdouts between the 5 and 20 members. And one of the things they were holding out on is spending. This is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out because he's in a rock and a hard place. He better listen to them or nothing might pass. So you think they're going to hold the line?
I think they will. And now, whether it'll hold up all the way through the Senate, whether the president will negotiate with them, he's adamantly said that he wouldn't. But, you know, that's what politicians do, as you and I both know. You stake out your ground, you say there will be no compromise, and then a week later when you've compromised, you say, well, I always intended to do this anyway. It's the ultimate dance that you see in state capitals as well as in the federal government. But I do believe that Kevin McCarthy is really duty-bound and honor-bound to stick to this idea that they're not just going to hit the gavel and raise the debt ceiling. And quite frankly, Rob, they shouldn't. This is a train they've seen coming for a year. It's not like it slipped up on them. And it's really recklessly irresponsible to always pretend we have an emergency. We have to do it. We have to do it now. The government might shut down. Well, you know what? A whole lot of businesses have shut down. A whole lot of families have shut down because of the government's reckless policies. So it would be painful. I'm not saying it wouldn't. But maybe that's exactly what has to happen to get people's attention. Truly understand just how much money these guys are spending and where it's coming from.
Let's go to the Biden document scandal right now. So the White House just did a U-turn today. In the past, they had said that his Wilmington homes were basically off limits. It was more of it actually was official business, but now it was off limits to official business. It's just personal and just family. That's a very big distinction and a very big different stance than they took in the past.
Well, and they took it because if it truly had never a moment of official business, then they can justify saying, we don't know who came and went because it was all personal. It was Joe's old buddies from Scranton. It was a group of guys coming over to play poker. So we didn't write their names down because their wives didn't know they were over playing poker with Joe, figuring they'd take advantage of the old gentleman. No, so what they had to do was to change the story to make it a little better for them. But what they cannot change is the fact that in the case of Joe Biden's documents, it wasn't the FBI or the DOJ rushing in with armed agents that got those documents. They allowed his own attorneys, his personal attorneys, and the White House counsel to determine what was classified, what shouldn't have been there, and then they could turn over. How do we know that this whole thing was done with integrity? Why weren't we told back in November, 6 days before the election, that they first discovered these documents at the so-called Penn Biden Chinese financed think tank? There's just a lot here. It smells worse than a fish that's been out of water for 17 days. And I don't know how they're going to cover up the stink.
And just so Mr. Biden flushed us, beat us straight, the DOJ also, by the way, the retrieval of the documents, the FBI, according to the Wall Street Journal, was not present when the DOJ went to retrieve the documents. That's pretty interesting because they did not consider that an investigation at that point.
Well, why didn't they? If you have classified documents that a person has personal control of, which is illegal in itself, Joe Biden was vice president. He couldn't wave his hand over a box of documents and say they're declassified. Presidents can do that. Obama could do it. Donald Trump could do it. Joe Biden couldn't. Why did he have those documents? Why did ever he see those in his possession? And why would he stick them next to his Corvette in the garage? I mean, this has got to be one of the most insane things I've ever seen. Just put some documents in your garage, set it next to your car, open the garage door. I mean, this is the ultimate garage sale, if there ever was one. Hello, China, come on over. We're having a sale. I've got some classified stuff. And if you don't like that, I got a Corvette I can sell you for a real nice price. And by the way, we have some of Hunter's paintings available, and boy, are they real special. I don't know why the American press is not just up in arms over this, and the only reason they're not is because they have spent the better part of several years protecting Joe Biden rather than protecting the American public from Joe Biden.